So it took a while to put this presentation together. It's been a work in progress since last year's psychedelic conference and meeting a lot of you and hearing about your concerns. And I thought that I was not ever going to have to come back and revisit some of these issues after my tenure down at the Peyote Gardens came to an end. But here we are again. Having to listen, y'all are having to listen to the same things I had to deal with when I was the keeper of the Peyote Gardens. I was a caretaker for the Native American Church, and the Native American Church is a small, 350,000 members, más o menos, but it's still a very small community. And you know, the word gets around of who you are, who you're hanging with, who you're praying with, and so it's sometimes a little too small for comfort. So I've tailored this presentation to respond to some of the things that I've seen online and heard, and so that I can help you narrow down some truths, some facts about this peyote culture, okay? I'm not going to try and convince you. I'm not going to try and persuade you. I'm just going to show you. I'm going to show you where this all started and where it went from there and why we're in the mess that we're in right now. Okay, so I am the former caretaker of the Native American Church home site in Miranda City, Texas. Everybody recognize this iconic, this iconic symbol here? You ever look it up on the internet? It sits right here over the house of Amada Cardenas, who lived to be 100 years, almost 101 years old. If you've ever been in a peyote ceremony, they say that altar, they draw a line on that crescent moon and say that line right there represents 100 years of a person's life. Well, she actually lived it all the way through. And this is me here, this little chubby one in the middle is me. And I'm at the Native American Church of New Mexico Conference in Coyote Canyon, New Mexico, and these are my Navajo relatives, you know, and you see notice how the women are to my left and the men are to my right. And that's, you know, if you're married in the church, your wife sits to your left, or your mom sits to your left, or your daughter sits to your left, and your partner sits to your right if, you know, you're not married. But anyway, I was there from 2006 to 2017 and saw quite a bit. I had a front row seat to everything. Politics, ceremony, teachings, you know, ceremonies over and over and over again. So the Native American Church celebrated 100 years in 2018. It was started in 1918 by the Comanches. And if you don't know this, the original setting, before the Native American Church, there was a setting regarding the use of peyote. The previous setting of the Native American Church was veneration for the Virgin of Guadalupe. Okay, and the Comanches took that and Christianized it. This would be a second Reformation now, right? And a group of Methodists turned it into a Christian church, Native American Church, Comanches. And I sit up with them once a year, and you're going to church. You sit up with Comanches. You know, there's no room in that ceremony for getting in touch with nature. You're getting in touch with scripture and whatever it is they're preaching. Well, you know what they're preaching in there, preaching the salvation through the blood of Christ. So just for you fact checkers, because they're out there, this is my ID card for the governance in Coahuila, and my office and our governors answer to José Luis García Duarte, Presidente Nacional de la Gobernancia Indígena of Afroamericana de Mexico. We answer to the greater governance of the entire country of Mexico. And I am the Director of Education, Investigation, and Training. Recently, as she mentioned, my bio mentioned, by the way, that bio came off of a lawsuit. I'll tell you about here in a minute. So that I was heavily vetted for this lawsuit so that we could even approach what we were trying to accomplish. But anyway, we discovered that our cosmology was painted on the wall 2,000 years ago on this piece of rock art called the White Shaman mural. And myself and Dr. Eric Schrader and Joe Tejas, our geologist, wrote a paper for the Texas Archaeological Society, and it was published 2 years ago. So it's really important, I think it's really important that when we learn some of the things about our culture, those things that you can't say about what's going on in a ceremony, you can at least make comparisons without giving secrets away. You get yourself into trouble. So here's the painting. This is the White Shaman mural. We call it, our people, Pacawas, Coahuiltecos, we call it Napaco, our journey. And it was introduced to me in 2009, and by 2011 I had broken the geography, what it is. And one of the most outstanding things about this painting, geographically, is these 4 dots right here. These 4 dots connected by this sinuous line. And I learned after quite a bit of thinking was that this was the edge of the Balcones escarpment here. And these are the 4 fountain springs along the escarpment. The Blue Hole and Incarnate Word, Comal Springs, San Marcos Springs, and Barton Springs in Austin. Who's ever been to Austin and Barton Springs? Come on, you gotta, if you haven't go to Barton Springs, go jump in the water and freeze. Other locations that we discovered, the entrance there, the sun is entering the underworld here, right here. This geographic location would be Jacob's Well. The sunrise here, the sun god here is a place in San Angelo, Texas. And this is all related to peyote, 2,000 years ago. The study that was done on this painting was done in Mexico with the Huichol and the Aztecs and the Mayas. Well, that's all good, but why is it a map of Texas? How far north was Mesoamerica? Or did it start down there and come this way, or start here and go south? Here we go, University of Texas, Friedrich Ruckling, September, Coahuiltecan Indian ceremonies, peyote is found in great quantities in northeastern Mexico, and the statements prompt a suggestion that peyote was first placed in the ceremonial setting by the Coahuiltecan peoples. The peyote complex, which is called Che, the Che complex, was diffused from the Coahuiltecan area to other indigenous groups of Mexico who modified the original setting, and modern peyote cult spread into much later times to the plains of the United States. So what's happening here? The reason why these anthropologists show it happening here first is because the evidence showing the first peyote culture is hunter-gatherer. The second one in Mexico is agricultural. Does that make sense? So somewhere along the line, somebody decided they didn't want to go out and hunt deer anymore. They wanted to grow corn and then have it served to them. You know? But I love my Aztec brothers and sisters. This is a paper. This guy, Kevin Feeney, we're really dear friends now. And he's a professor at Washington University near Seattle, Washington. And yeah, Central Washington University. And he came to me one day and said, hey, I want to write a story about the peyote trade in Texas. And I said, okay. You'll need to ask the tribes themselves if you can. You just can't come to me and say, I want to do this. And we got to go to Oklahoma to the home church and say, is this okay? You know, And he said, okay, we'll do that, and that's what we did. But I said, let me ask you something, dude. So I grew up in South Texas. I said, let me ask you something, man. What is it? And this was like 20-something years ago. I said, what is it about white folks? What is it that you tell your children? How is it that you raise your children that almost guarantees their success? I want to know. You know? And I'll tell you one of the reasons why. Because I grew up in the same small town that George Strait grew up in, the country singer. And you know how successful he is. Right? By the way, his dad was really a great guy. He was a bus driver, really nice guy. Anyway, what is it y'all say, Gary? It's not what we say to them. And it isn't how we raise them. It's that we own all the resources. And I said, okay, I'll work with you. Thank you for that brutal honesty. And over the years since I've met him, I see over and over and over again the brutality throughout our country because of, let's for the moment, non-natives not having that kind of power because we don't own the land that we used to occupy. Someone else does. So that's where the power sits, in land ownership. By the way, I sat over at Texas A&M at College Station. I was a member of what do you call that? When you get people in front, and like 3 people, and it's a panel, thank you. It was myself, Cultural Preservation Officer, Comanche Cultural Preservation Officer, Apache Cultural Preservation Officer. And there were some strange questions. One question was about sovereignty. And I said, you know what, that's a very strong word. I'm not going to answer to that. Because sovereignty means absolute power. Right? I don't like that word at all. And the last question that we were asked in that panel was, do you ever plan to take the land back, the land of Texas back? And if so, how do you plan to do it? You know, I thought that was strange. Neither one of us answered the question directly. All of our answers were different, but none of us said we had ever thought about doing that at all. But I just wanted to tell you about, gosh, I got off on a tangent, didn't I? So, my concerns, the demand. When I arrived at the Peyote Gardens, I was there for, I don't know, 12 years, something like that. It was, there was 1,000 buttons. Can you imagine 1,000 peyote buttons about that big around in a burlap sack, maybe 3/4 full, right? Weighed about 40 or 50 pounds. It was $300. $300. Today, 2 pounds of dried peyote, not the succulent, you know, that we're selling back then. Just the dried, that's how scarce it is now. Just the 2 pounds of dried peyote is $600. And the demand hasn't changed since I was there and since I left. In Kevin's paper, here, let me point it out. The Native American Church of North America was already declaring a peyote supply crisis in 1995, a year when the demand was estimated at 5 to 10 million buttons a year. The same church that shared this concern was the same church that created the demand. Okay? 10 million buttons. One of the attempts that they made, and I was there, was they invited a group of Huichol Indians over to Miranda City, Texas, to have this conference with them. And they were talking about how they wanted to create some sort of trade with the Huichol. And so the Huichol said, well, okay, we'll consider something. We don't know what it is that you want, but how much peyote is it that you need per year? What is the demand? And when they heard 10 million buttons a year, the Huichol said, ¿Qué? No. There was so much tension in the room that they eventually had to break away from NACNA to go be somewhere else and try to wrap their heads around that. And then they came to me and they said, this is impossible. This isn't going to work. So, as if things weren't bad enough, about 10 years ago, we were worried that the fracking was going to come further south into Texas. And the geographer that I was working with at the time to do my discovery, Andrew May, I taught him how to rappel and scuba dive when he was a kid, and now he's this fantastic geographer working for, I think it was Whole Foods. And I said, do you think you could drop a map of South Texas? Where he goes, yeah, I'm working on one right now. I said, for what? We're looking to fracking in South Texas, in Webb County, where all the peyote grows. And I said, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to find peyote. I mean, you're not going to find gas for fracking in South Texas. You're not going to do that. Please don't do that. You know? But in any case, they didn't find any, but the wind turbines came in and wiped out millions of peyote buttons. Millions. I went to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality and told them about my concerns. And their response was, well, we don't know what peyote is. Texas Commission on Environmental Quality did not know what peyote was. You know? Okay, let's take a closer look at this culture, this peyote culture. I was very careful to make sure that what anthropologists are saying speaks directly to what is true about our peyote culture. The language, primarily the most important thing belonging to a people is their language. It's the strongest part of how you identify with being any particular native from any particular tribe. So here's the area of where the peyote still grows a lot of places. This is mostly where it's harvested here. But it still grows along the US-Mexican border this way at the Big Bend, all the way down into this region, just this side of Monterrey. And this is the land of my people, right here. Los Coahuiltecos, or Coahuilchulos, if you want to call us that too, if you want to. I don't know. Some levity, you know. So in this book, I'm sorry for how badly it, I'm really bad at creating PowerPoints. But this is a book called The Linguistic Material of the Tribes of Southern Texas and Northeastern Mexico. It was done over 100 years ago, and there were some of our peoples that were still on both sides that could speak the language. And there's a word that you hear in peyote songs all over the U.S., peyote songs in the U.S. and Canada. Yana wana. Yana wana hey yana hey nay. Hey yana hey nay. Hey yana hey. Hey yana hey nay. Hey yana hey nay. Yana wana, the San Antonio River. Well, where's the San Antonio River? In Texas. Where's the language from? South Texas. Where's the peyote culture coming from? Texas. Okay? Here's an example of, if you've never heard a Native American church song, here's an example of a song. It's not, but the translation down here, Indigenous Cultures Institute in 2010, the Morning Water Song was translated back into Coahuilteco after God knows how many years. And this is what the song is. It says, at this moment, water spirit, Yanawana moment is everything. Water mother now, with this thought, yes, singing. The song we're going to play is not that song. It would be sacrilegious to play it out of context. But this is what it sounds like. Playing that song, or singing that song out of ceremonial context, what people would call sacrilegious. You know, and I don't know if I can be a hard butt like that. I am with my people, you know, but I wouldn't be that way with the church because they do what they want to do anyway. I believe the other language that was being sung in there was Navajo. Astronomy. The skies over Texas. Unfortunately, one of the holiest sites in the Native American church, whether they know it or not, is the Brackenridge Park, where the river flows through Brackenridge Park in San Antonio, is identical to a constellation of stars in the sky. Okay? And when that constellation of stars in the sky is straight up and down in our skies, the San Antonio River, and that constellation meet end to end at the Gulf of Mexico. I'll show you to you here in a minute. Beneath that constellation, if you've ever been a Peyote ceremony, right at midnight, everybody takes out their feathers. And that happens because there's bunches of constellations of feathers in the underworld at that time. Birds, migratory birds, okay, in our southern skies. We're currently suing the city of San Antonio to stop removing the trees, the rookeries, the birds from being at that particular location in the park, the bend in the river. You'll see it in a minute. And so far we've gotten the judge to remove the fence that was there keeping us from going in, but they haven't done anything to save the birds or save the trees. It seemed as though that particular tenet, that midnight water, that blessing with those bird feathers at midnight, that's where it was born. But now without the rookery, without the birds, the tenet we all enjoy in the Native American church from here to Canada is gone. Gone. No more. And I warned the city of San Antonio 5 times, please don't do this. You're going to do this some cosmological harm. You're going to destroy and spiritual ecology. By the way, the cultural landscape report that the city paid for to see what needed to be taken care of at the park included the White Shaman mural, and that a lot of us believe that the river flowing through the park is, and you'll see it in the painting. Told them 5 times, and they didn't listen. So this is the lawsuit. We're looking at the lawsuit here. Here's the San Antonio River as it flows through the park, Brackenridge Park, right here. See that? Here's the constellation of Indigenous. This is Yanawana, right there.
And Iridia in Spanish means the way, right? Did you know that?
What?
Iridia in Spanish means the way.
Okay. Iridium. In radian? Okay, the way. So, once a year, here's the sentence, here's Indigenous, right here. And here's the San Antonio River, and once a year, this Yanawana on earth and Yanawana in the sky meet end to end at the Gulf of Mexico at midnight. And they connect us, the even longer river connects us all the way up to the constellation of Orion, where our ancestors dwell, according to our creation story. Here's another part of the lawsuit. This is the White Shaman mural. Here's like this, he's created an inset here. But this is a blow up of what that looks like. And here's the constellation in the sky. So it's in the rock art 2,000 years ago, and it's in the sky. This figure compares, says here, this figure compares the iconography is isolated in figure 5 with the Indigenous constellation that is connected to the bend of the San Antonio River located in the park. So, the Native American Church venerates the morning star, Venus the morning star. And we agree with that. Pacawas, we agree with that. Native American Church, we get it, the morning star, Venus, we get that. And according to the work that we've done, the research that we've done, we've learned that the very first day that the sun rose in our creation story took place when the sun rose dead east in the Milky Way. Here's the Milky Way. Here's that morning. Right there in the Milky Way. Right now, this event takes place. It takes place. I'm getting my head turned around here. Anyway, it rose dead east in the Milky Way here 6,000 years ago. If you take the painting literally, and the deer that guided us through the underworld to the first day of creation, the universe and everything else, you have to go back 6,000 years to find the sun rising dead east in the Milky Way. Today it rises on December 21st. But over time that changes. And if you were lucky enough 6,000 years ago, this is what you would have seen. The sun rising between the buttes and San Angelo, the very first day, 6,000 years ago. This is the view that our ancestors had. But this is equinox, though. When the sun rises in the Milky Way, it's wintertime, the coldest day of the year. But today, our winter is in December, and our spring, of course, is in March. Geography, finally, lastly. There's a story about, every Native American church tells it differently, but there's a root of this story, this woman who was lost in the garden, in the desert. And she was lost from her people, she was hungry, she was thirsty, she was confused. Well, after complete exhaustion, she laid down in the desert. And when she woke up that morning, she heard whispers talking to her. And she put her head, she couldn't hear exactly what it was that the ground was whispering at her. And when she finally got to the ground close enough, she closed her eyes looking, excuse me, she opened her eyes and there was peyote all around her, talking to her. And then it became audible. And the peyote was telling her, hey, wake up, eat medicine, eat peyote. We'll take away the thirst and the hunger and the confusion, and we'll help you find your people. The only thing you need to do is pick as much of us as you can and put it on your skirt, and carry it back to your people. So whenever they tell that story in the Native American church, If it's a Comanche telling that story, it's a Comanche woman who was lost. If it's a Navajo telling that story, then it was a Navajo woman that was lost. You know, and that's how it propagates all the way up to Canada. Boy, that's lost. You know what I mean? So, for a long time, South Texas people only knew that woman as La Llorona. Okay, so we're going to introduce you to both at the same time, but it's not La Llorona. Here's the Nueces River. You can see she left her profile in the desert. There's her forehead, her bridge of her nose, where her nostrils would be, her upper lip, her open mouth, her chin, her neckline, all the way down here. She left her profile in the desert, in Texas. Okay? So let me remove that. I don't know if that helps any. You know, the forehead, the nose. Sometimes it helps to give people a different perspective. Remove the background and then you can see it clearer. But you can see her mouth is turned towards the direction towards where the peyote grows. Okay? This is I-35. This is San Antonio's I-35. I-35 goes through her mouth right here. And my grandmother, we used to go to Laredo, Nuevo Laredo. We used to go to Nuevo Laredo to buy peyote because you could no longer pick it anywhere in here because of the ranching and clear cutting and all this other stuff. So we had to go across the border to buy peyote from the pharmacy. 5 cents for a peyote button, including the root and the dirt and everything in a little brown paper bag, taken home and make medicines with it. Back in the 60s and 70s. I thought I'd leave you with this picture of the sunrise at San Angelo at winter solstice, and those of us who managed to, you know, save our pennies, and we make it every year to that sunrise, you know, to thank our Creator, God, and for our culture, for our language, for our beliefs. You know, if you remember the sunrise, every peyote ceremony has a sunrise song. The one in the east, the one that you saw earlier, that's 6,000 years ago. That was the original sunrise. Okay. So, thank you. That's that.
So what are they doing now in regards to resourcing the peyote? What is the status right now?
I'm not down there right now, but I hear rumors. You know some of them as the rumors as fact. You know, there was some property purchased. It's called the 605, just south of Grandma Mother's house, where the plan was to cultivate the peyote. Primarily so that one group of people could have their own peyote to go pick themselves, rather than having to purchase it from a dealer. You know, there are some tribes that have a real problem with that. They don't like the way that it's cut. They don't like that some of the root comes up with it. You know, they have their own issues with it. But they wanted primarily to save what they could and then cultivate it. And I know that a lot of the land, the 605, was purchased because there was these wind turbines, 2 wind turbines that were going to be placed on the property to help pay for the maintenance and you know, the venture that they're going to do. But the wind turbines, they never made it. So all that funding went out the window. And I asked the guy who bought the land while I was in Denver last year, I asked him, I said, now that you've lost this money that's supposed to be coming in, what are you going to do? And he says, well, Gary, we're going to be fine. We're going to be okay. I said, okay, that's all I wanted to know. It's just this concern, you know, because a lot of people that were involved in the 605 That was their hope. You know, and I understand their concerns.
Gary, can you explain what 605
The 605 is a 605 acres, purchased about 15 miles, 5 to 10 miles further down from Grandma Amada's house, the Holy Land, in order to cultivate peyote, working with a botanist by the name of Martin Terry out of Sul Ross University. And they want to cultivate it, and they're probably purchasing it and then taking it back and putting it back in the ground, which I think is a good idea, providing you leave the rest of it alone. You know, the whole thing, the whole point of, one of the biggest point of my talk today is to show you just how scarce it is now, and how expensive it is, and how the demand that the church puts on it is already one problem. The other problem is how people who don't know the peyote intimately don't understand what the peyote itself is going through, what the Native American Church is going through to try to protect it and cultivate it. You just don't understand. And in Mexico, we know that there are some people going into Coahuila and cutting it and bringing it back into the States. Well, we're going to write legislation to our governor of Coahuila to stop it. You know, even, you know, I'm sorry to the Native American Church. No, you may not come to Coahuila and take our medicine. That's for us. Y'all had your chance. And you know, and keep fighting, Native American Church. Keep fighting. If you discipline yourself, you can save what's left for yourself. But now that it's become, now that the state of Colorado has decriminalized, you know, let me tell you what's scary about that. It means that more people have access and fewer people have access. We learned during this study that we did 10, 12 years ago, Kevin Vianney and I, we looked at it. We couldn't answer for the other few million buttons that were disappearing in the gardens. It was because it was being poached. Imagine how much of it now is being poached that it's so damn expensive for even the Native American Church to purchase. I'm a member of the church. And it costs me $600, once everything's paid for and done, we've spent about between $600 and $800 to have it mailed then to the house or to wherever it's going to go. So you got to be careful about this decriminalizing peyote, because it makes people think that more people can or should have more access to it. You know, and there's so little left. It's pitiful. I mean, I would say if things continue on the way they have, I'll tell you what, you're not pulling 10 million buttons out of the gardens these days. Those were the good old days. That's over. And so, if in my opinion, I would remove the peyote from that list of psychedelics that were decriminalized in the state of Colorado. I would remove it, just for the sake of the peyote and the culture, you know.
Peyote is accepted from the statute. So,
it was removed.
yeah, it's out. Peyote is out of the statute.
But mescaline isn't.
Mescaline is in.
So where's the mescaline going to come from? You know, in all fairness, I appreciate that. But where's the mescaline going to come from? And how are you going to say, okay, well, yeah, peyote's not a part of it, but wait a minute, you're still using the word mescaline. I've been hearing that for the last year. But let me reiterate, peyote is still tied very much to mescaline. Right now, the way the word mescaline is being used stains the word peyote. It stains it. It gives, yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that because it's almost a political thing that it says mescaline not from peyote, but the truth is nobody's going to be finding out where exactly the mescaline came from. So the danger is that one, there's two very important things to consider. One is that probably a lot of people will be getting mescaline from peyote in whatever ways they do because people do that. And two, people are going to South America and buying Huachuma farms down there, San Pedro farms down there, and buying out lots to get the mescaline not from peyote and creating a cultural and economic problem down south. So it's a problem anywhere you look.
Can you talk about a little bit about this pattern that we're seeing with people making up churches so they can do whatever they want, and the government giving them permission to go to other countries like Mexico, like Bolivia, like Ecuador, like all the South American countries to come and get the medicine from there? Because it feels really weird.
I made it very distinct where this culture, peyote culture, came from, didn't I? The language, the stars, the geography. I was a keeper of the peyote guards once, and I'm still the chief of my people. And I'm telling you, I can't do anything about the Native American church and its demand on the peyote. But I'm asking, at least from the state of Coahuila, to stay out. If you're not native to the state of Coahuila, don't set foot in my state and poach our peyote. Other tribes in Mexico, whoever it is, Huicho, whoever, they need to make the same statements. We need to pass legislation in Mexico to keep the demand out of Mexico. You figure out whatever it is you're going to do, figure out a way to do it without it. And like I said, and the thing that worries me the most is the poaching. People, let me say this, ma'am. People, for the most part, and I'm just saying this may be an opinion, but I've been around a little while. People sometimes aren't smart enough to make the distinction between what is fair and what isn't, what is sacrilegious and what's not. They just want to get their way. And they're willing to break the law. Okay? They're willing to break the law to do it. And they're willing to sacrifice other people's cultures to do it. Some of our own people do it to ourselves. Some of our own relatives lie about the culture. You know, it's human nature. But those of us who are higher, think at higher levels, we need to get in there and make the noise to get people's attention to stop this. And I'm gonna do this in front of my people here. You know, I support you in what you're trying to get across to everyone in the state of Colorado, because look at what it did to the state of Texas. Okay? And keep that number in your head. 10 million buttons a year.
Gary, what do you think about borders and this, imagine these lines of political, and how do you, like, when you think about the land that you guys roamed pre-colonial, how does that make you feel, you know?
She's asking me how I feel about the borders now that separate Texas from Coahuila, Tamaulipas, Nuevo León. Well, I'll tell you, there's something you can't stop within our culture. We have a temple of the sun and we have a temple of the moon. And those alignments from the temple of the moon and the temple of the sun cut clear across the states in Mexico. Those alignments just continue on into sacred spaces in Mexico, sacred spaces in Coahuila, you know. And we know where those places are. and we don't see the borders. Cosmologically speaking, we don't see the borders. And I don't know if that answers to what you were asking me. If you wanted me one way to be specific in another direction.
Well, no, I mean, it's as Native people, there's all these constructs now that we have to operate in.
Mm-hmm.
But pre-colonization, we didn't have to operate in those.
Oh no, of course we didn't. We were free. We were free to hunt. You know, we were free to look up at the skies and calculate the next lunar eclipse or annular eclipse or solar eclipse and those things. We were masters of the universe. And then and our laboratory was the state of Texas, our lab. Where we got all of our teachings was the geography and astronomy over the state of Texas. As a matter of fact, my tribe, myself and our tribe, we're going to be working with NASA now to start recording all of that stuff and turn it into curriculum to teach children how to do the math again. You know, NASA's coming to help us out. So we're going to hand that back to our gentes, you know, our gentes, our raza relatives in Colorado, Tejanos, Chicanos, Mexican Americans. We're going to share it with them too. Yes, ma'am.
What do you think about, so there's a lot of crises like mental health crises, global climate crisis, all of these, like people are really sick, you know, there's a lot of illness, and I mean like dis-ease, as in there's a lot of sufrimiento, a lot of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think overall as Native people, you know, we agree that everything is really out of balance, right? All of these, the way that Western systems treat Mother Nature, and it's not reciprocal. So one of the reasons this is so big here in Colorado is because people are like, wow, this is going to bring all the healing, it's going to bring all the healing that we need. But what do you think about like these different medicines like mescaline and well, peyote is not on the legislation, but different medicines down south as being the solution to all of the world's problems, which that's...
Let me answer that as a cultural preservation officer, not as a scientist or somebody who knows the geopolitics of the whole thing. Okay? Without a lot of what I just shared with you tonight, I don't care who you are. I don't care how much peyote you eat. And it doesn't matter how much you eat it in a microdose, mescaline in a microdose. None of that gives you access to the culture. None of it. All you're doing is taking an aspirin. Really. You're only taking, it's just a moment in time. It's your relationship, and you know, there's so much behind what I'm saying. The culture itself, at least the peyote culture itself, is layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of disciplines and knowledge and cosmology. And it's massive. Okay, massive. And it's passed on, we call it an everlasting man. Passed on from generation to generation to generation at great risk at times in the past of our lives. And all the people who died trying to save it. And all the people who died believing in it. And all the blood that was spilled in the state of Texas by Texas Rangers. See, all that's, and then the trauma left behind. All that's left behind. All of that is all coiled up. And really, in order for a person to receive what we receive from this medicine, you have to turn your life around completely. and learn from the native people about what it means. If you really want to understand what this, how powerful these medicines are, it ain't going to happen in a clinic. It ain't going to happen in a clinic. I'm willing to help. I'm willing to help, you know, especially with veterans who are Tejanos, Chicanos, and Mexicanos. Because I'm not just going to go and say, hey, brother, go ahead and take this there, it's going to be all right. I'm going to say, ¿sabes qué? We're going to be sitting up here on the top of the mountain next week. Come and join us and get the teachings. That'll last forever. That will last forever. I'm sorry that so many people are suffering. You know what I mean? But from my position, there's this, I'm not getting into it, but from my position, I'm going to dive into the swirling ocean that's going like this, and my people are caught up in. I'm going to dive up in there as best as I can and grab one at a time and pull them out with what our ancestors left behind for us. And I'm sorry, I can't do it for everybody, but I need to do it for my own people. So, yes, sir.
Hi, great talk. I was wondering, what's being done to survey the peyote, and what kind of protections are in place right now to keep, are there any protections to keep people out of these areas?
No, there aren't. The DEA enforces the harvest, the storage, the purchase, and the hauling back to any state. The DEA is responsible for enforcing all of that. The dealer himself has to have three measures of protection to keep people out from ripping him off. Okay? There's no peyote police out there really making sure that this isn't happening. And you know, there could be. There could be. I know for a fact, having been down there for 12 years, I discovered a route out of the US-Mexican border into the interior of Texas that is not policed at all by INS. And I said, this is how a lot of this stuff is getting through here. The drugs and the peyote and the poaching. You know, there's all kinds of holes in the system that allows for, and it seems, I swear it seems by design. You know, they're not doing everything. The US government is not doing everything it can to save what's left of the medicine and keep it getting trafficked from from Mexico through the state of Texas and into the interior, because there are holes in the system. They're there. I never used them because I didn't want them to know that I had discovered it. Yeah. Is there anything that didn't make sense tonight? Please. Or is there something I need to clarify? I'm having to, and I'll tell you what, I'm in a difficult position here because I've got to clarify my position in the state of Colorado. You know, I need to, because people are asking me for questions or advice, but I'm here to also to listen to what you have to say, and if it fits well with what our beliefs are and what we think, you know, we'll go along with you and we'll help you. You know, I live in Texas. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for using your voice to protect the medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really appreciate your wisdom and knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. Let me say one last thing. I think this is important. I kept debating about whether or not I was going to say this. There's a lot of talk up here. A lot of natives. There's a lot of good natives too. I mean, there's good and bad everywhere. But there's a lot of rhetoric behind this is our medicine, or this is our way of life, or, you know, it was made for us. You wouldn't get away with that in the state of Texas. because of the Texas Administrative Code, allows for Canadians, non-federally recognized tribes, and Tejanos, and Chicanos, and Mexicanos to have peyote churches in the state of Texas, because we don't plan to traffic it out of the state anyway. It grows in our backyard. You know? So this kind of rhetoric that you're hearing from some peoples, they don't do it in Texas. They're taking advantage of your naivete and scaring you. Okay? You come to the state of Texas. If you're a relative of mine and you know who you are, you're always welcome in my church. You're always welcome in our Pagawa, you know, mitote ceremonies. Okay? But you know what? We have Tejano, Chicano, and Mexican American relatives in Colorado. Support them with all that you can. Please support them. You know, if you're a church member, and you know when I say I love my raza in Colorado, you know exactly what I mean. If you've sat with this medicine, right, mijo? You know exactly what I mean. So I learned that love having sat there all those years and watched the universe unfold in front of me. What that love, how powerful that love really, really, really is. And it's real. And it's irreplaceable. It's irreplaceable. And it's tied to our peyote culture. As a matter of fact, one time, that guy David Martin Davies, the one I was shining and showing the light, he was with Texas Public Radio, and he came down one day and he sat up with us. He came out that morning, and I was looking for him. And I walked up behind him and I tapped him on the shoulder. And I said, "What did you think?" And he blurted the most vulgar expletive that you could possibly. Everybody heard him. You know, like holy crap, but it was worse than that. And he says, "Oh my God." He says, "You live like this?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Gary, we got to tell the whole world." I'm sure that was the peyote talking. I said, no, brother. This belongs to us. Okay? So please, love is what's going to solve a lot of these problems that you're talking about, Gabby. It's love. Okay? But I think love is enough for whatever's needed here in the state of Colorado with the people that are hurting. You know, and but once again, by taking mescaline or by taking psilocybins, whatever it is that you have to offer to people, just let them know that when they're going through this therapy, they're not getting immediate access to the culture, so that they learn to respect it, the culture, and maybe even get on your side to take care of it, protect it alongside with you. Okay, Marty, everybody knows Marty. I thought he was the sweetest guy in the world on the phone until I met him. Precioso. Great, thank you.
A round of applause for Gary.